Doing good.
You're looking that way, so I understand.
We got here a little early.
Our meeting starts It's good weather. 5 hours,
Well, Carolyn Graybox's daughter contacted me Friday and said she was understanding their She's gonna watch me sit at my computer all day.
And Joanna didn't have any.
Well,
There wasn't anything to do.
what was she gonna do? Watch me take a conference call? In my yoga pants, I know, right?
It'll be interesting. I think it'll be more exciting.
So, no, you would be way more exciting. That's why I was like, and Joanna has no more than that. So I was like, you know, she can't talk about me.
I'll clear the building. I can't talk about I know.
That was a brother. I think it was a brother that shot right
Let's ride motorcycle. Get up. You gotta get up. Yeah.
So you're supposed to spin around the chair and get that.
Hey, get off.
Voice and reason. Agent.
I mean, you got your hair that.
What's gonna happen on
Election those views.
Yeah, but is there anything else that happened?
We call the meeting of the County Services Committee together, and want to know if we have any modifications to the agenda.
This or is this just a
We'll talk
report?
about that later. Yeah. Any changes to the agenda? I guess that means we're approved.
Second.
All right, Mr. Luther, Radio Committee. So you're bringing an assistant, huh?
Well, I wouldn't say assistant, I would say.
He was too nervous to be by himself.
Partner, that's right. Yes.
Them two running two partner of crime.
Well, you guys get up there and speak into the mic so everybody can hear you.
Yes, sir, thank you. I'm John Luther, I'm the emergency manager for the county. We were tasked, I think well over a year ago, to look at what do we need to do to replace our current radio system. I'll give you just a bit of background on the current radio system. We've had it, we say, since 2004. It's been a system that has served us throughout that entire time period. It's currently online today. But I will say that the hardware is no longer able to be replaced, so that if we have any catastrophic failures at any of our multiple tower sites, it could certainly be a huge detriment to the county. We are able at this point to keep it online under, from time to time it goes down, and our folks that take care of the maintenance go out and get it back up. But we've said this over the last year, and I don't say this and smile because I'm excited about it. I say it because it worries me. I mean, we're truly a lightning strike away from having to make a decision overnight as to what we do. With that being said, not to alarm anyone, we have been, over the last many months, looking at options as to what do we do to replace the system and what's the route that is right for Washington County and the cities and other agencies within the county to go to. We formed a radio committee. Captain McConnell with the Sheriff's Office is one of the representatives. We've got Chief Brian Hubbard with Farmington Police Department. We've got Chief Coker, who is the president of the Rural Fire Association. We've got Assistant Chief Steve Harrison, who's with Central EMS. And who am I missing back there? From the committee, I think that's the only ones on the committee except for our JP representative, JP Leming. So there are some others that are on the committee. They're just not here tonight. We've met numerous times, kind of started from scratch. We all thought we knew more about the radios and systems than we did. We've all learned a lot. I think that's fair to say. Technology has changed, certainly an improvement in the time that we've been on our current system. Some basic things that we made as priorities were on our future system, whatever it is, and I'll use this as a point of reference even though it's a phone, we wanted our handheld radios to work without question for our users in the field. We weren't really worried about the radios in our vehicles because if the handheld works, the vehicle radio will work. And so when our people are out of their patrol units, they're off the fire truck, they're off the ambulance, they're out on a search and rescue mission, when the problems happen, they're typically not within the car or fire truck or ambulance. They're out on foot. When his folks are out in the field and they get into a foot pursuit, they're not in the car. And so we wanted to make certain that whatever we do, we have coverage on the handheld radio that the user has on their belt out in the field with them. Fireman in a house, whatever that case may be. So we wanted to make certain that the handheld would work for our folks. We wanted to make certain that no matter what we do, we can talk to our peers, because certainly mutual aid is a critical element within our county and with those counties around us, even at times further into the state than just the two counties that we generally work with. So a handheld being able to work and being able to talk to our peers was certainly the priorities of the system. We really didn't put any restrictions on ourselves as to what it costs. We felt like you guys would do a good job of that for us. So we just kind of opened the doors to what is out there, what is available. We spoke to two different companies who have provided proposals for us. There are still a few refinements to make on the proposals, just because some things truly have to be looked at once a decision is made as to the direction that we go. But one of the companies that we spoke to was Motorola, who is actually the provider and vendor for the state of Arkansas Wireless Information Network. They provide the infrastructure and many user units on the statewide radio system. And then we spoke to Smith Two-Way, who is a vendor for Kenwood, who has provided us equipment in the past and some that we currently use. And they sell both P25, which is what Motorola has proposed to us, as well as Kenwood's proposed a NextEdge system, which is a different protocol than P25. So we've had those two put there. Either way we go, it's a wholesale change. Nothing that we use today will move forward. Okay, so just want everybody to be clear on that. Everything will be replaced with all new equipment.
And one of the things why it's got to be replaced is what we're coming across now is the system that we have, we can't get the equipment to replace that system. So if we have something goes out at a tower or something, we can't call the distributor and say, hey, I need that iPhone 1 back. I mean, they don't make these items anymore. So that's why we developed the committee to look forward to see what system we need to go to.
Yep, that's correct.
John,
Yes, sir.
does this also include the local or regional, the local fire departments,
Yes.
the county, or, you know?
One proposal certainly provides for their infrastructure. One proposal provides for the infrastructure for them as well as user units. And I'll try to be brief,
all right.
but I'll try to break that
Okay,
down
good.
for you.
Thank you.
Our first proposal was by Motorola, and we've got representatives from Motorola here, Joe and Josh, who we've spent a tremendous amount of time with, both in person and on the phone and on email and on more emails and on more phone calls and more visits. But they have proposed, at this point, we've got 3 proposals from them listed here. Initially, the proposal was for a TDMA Phase 2 P25 system, and it came in around 11.9 million. It included a certain number of tower sites, all the equipment related to the infrastructure, equipment for our dispatch centers, which is critical, as well as 705 radios. And that was the number of radios that we asked for with both vendors. We later talked to them about some changes within that proposal, and we looked at how we could potentially set the system up, but somewhat different than the initial proposal, and they proposed FDMA. And guys, help me, I think TDMA is time division,
Multiple access.
and then FDMA is frequency division? Okay, so capacity issue, that's correct. So we looked at TDMA kind of, I guess, and I don't want to reflect anything poorly, but kind of pie in the sky. This is what we could get if we just went out and got everything. And we saw that that price was probably out of our price range. So when we came back, we looked at FDMA, a simulcast system, which would tie into the state of Arkansas, as they currently are Phase 1, and Fayetteville is Phase 1, so it was a system that could tie together with the existing state system. And doing it with a simulcast feature, which means all the towers talk at the same time, all the towers go quiet at the same time. All towers talk at the same time, all towers go quiet at the same time. That came in about 8.25 million with the same equipment for dispatch, as well as 705 radios for the users within Washington County. And then with some more refinements, and I can't begin to tell you how many coverage maps. Josh has really been a stickler on the coverage. What is each tower site going to provide coverage-wise for those within the county? What is it going to do for someone in Greenland? What is it going to do for someone in Evansville? What is it going to do for someone in West Fork? Okay? Each tower site serves their specific area, but it also has areas that it touches kind of on its margins. And so one thing we were able to do is look at the tower sites down in the Winslow area and the Hazel Valley area, and we felt like that there was probably enough coverage also with a tower from Crawford County area coming in that we could reduce one tower site in the southeast portion of the county, and we were able to get the cost down to 6.2 million. And that did include still the dispatch equipment as well as the 705 radios. And the only change we really saw in coverage was we went from 95% handy-talkie coverage to 93.3. Okay, so we felt like that was certainly something that we could live with, and we feel like that's certainly better than what we have today. So new system, new equipment, better coverage.
What kind of change would have to be made to make it 100%?
I don't know if we have enough budgets.
$750,000 a tower. Might be the tower on every block.
Yeah, and I don't mean to sound like a smart aleck, but I mean, 100% coverage, I think that Chief Deputy Cantrell put it right back in 2004, when he and I had a conversation about 100% coverage. He said, I just don't know that we could truly ever afford 100% coverage. And the way to look at that is this: you've all got a yard light. You've all gone outside your house in the dark. And that yard light, whether it's on the porch or whether it's out on a pole, covers a portion of your yard. But there's also a lot of areas that have shade or shadows, right? And the only way to resolve those dark spots is put up another light. And so you do. And then you find, well, there's another area that's got dark. And so it's almost it would be very, very, very expensive. There's probably $200 or $300 million worth of cell sites in our county, and who's got a drop call? Okay, so even with the expense that the cellular companies put into coverage in our county, there's still holes. And so I think, Harvey, it's a good question, but it would just be really, really hard, sir, to get 100% coverage.
What about putting a radio system on Carroll County's tower? Is that
Well,
a problem?
On Crawford, you mean?
On Crawford, yeah, I'm sorry.
Yes, well,
yeah.
it's actually on this particular proposal, that is included. That coverage comes into the county, and we would
Okay.
be able to utilize that.
Okay.
Yes, sir. And Josh made a good point. On the 6.2 million, that included one channel per site within Fayetteville. And you say, well, explain that. Fayetteville has 3 towers that are theirs. They use them every day. They're on their system as we speak right now. We know that if we go the route that Motorola has proposed for us, our users, the sheriff's office users, county users, Farmington PD users, others around, will at some point, the radio will affiliate with one of Fayetteville's towers, okay? And that's okay. What we don't want to do is not add capacity to their sites, because as we affiliate with their site, we cut into their capacity. And they have paid City of Fayetteville funds for a set level of capacity that they're comfortable with. Now, they do want us as a partner, and they do share their talk groups with us, and we do have a lot of communications with them, you know, on a, if not daily, certainly weekly basis. But if we were going to affiliate with their tower, we want to make certain that we put some infrastructure there so that we don't cause them capacity harm, if you will.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Chair. When you say affiliate, do you mean like when you collaborate on events, in emergency events? Is that what you mean? When you
Well,
affiliate,
yes,
when you
ma'am.
have to communicate with Fayetteville to?
That's one way, yes. Let's say Bikes, Blues, and Barbecue. If in fact we have, and Josh would have officers that would work that event alongside the Fayetteville officers, if we're on this system, their radios would log into the Fayetteville towers, and so they add additional loading to those sites. Each of those sites is set so that a certain amount of capacity is available for the City of Fayetteville personnel. So if we bring a bunch of users onto that, we're kind of loading it up on reduction of capacity.
Gotcha.
So we felt like at least we need to bring one channel to each of those 3 towers so that we don't cause harm, if you will, to their capacity, because they certainly built their system with a set capacity in mind that they want to have for the safety of their responders.
What's the cost of bringing a channel to?
It's included
in
in this number, but I do believe the 3 channels and equipment was just under 200,000.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's included in that figure. Did you have a question, sir? Okay, thought I saw you ask a question. And so at this point, the FDMA $6.2 million proposal, as it kind of sits right now, would put 4 sites out in the county that would be Washington counties. We would utilize one of the state sites, which is part of joining the state system, which is in the city of West Fork area. And then we would also use the 3 sites in the Fayetteville area. Okay, so that would be a total of 8 sites that we would access within the county. Now, there are other sites that we have not necessarily factored into Springdale, and they're coming online, and those sites would also cause us some additional coverage to be gained, but we don't feel like there's a capacity issue there that we would need to address any additional infrastructure for them at this point.
Would you have to add a channel there as well?
We don't think so.
Okay,
We don't think so.
okay.
The other proposal that was brought to the committee was provided by Smith Communications. They represent the Kenwood Company. They also proposed a wholesale changeout, which includes 8 sites within the county. One additional site is related to the University of Arkansas because they happen to have the same operating protocol that Kenwood proposed to us, which is called NextEdge. The county would own our sites, and what I mean by that is we wouldn't necessarily own the tower or infrastructure that holds the RF equipment, but we would certainly own all the RF equipment on those sites, just like we would on the AWIN system. Both systems provide interoperability. If we're on the AWIN system, we can talk to our peers. If we're on the NextEdge system, there's ways that we can talk to our peers, and one of those ways is they talked about a bridge that can be used to marry disparate systems together in limited fashion. And then they also proposed a radio, if you will, again, a handheld or a mobile for the vehicle that would not only operate in the NextEdge platform, but it would also have a P25 software upgrade so that it could actually move off of the NextEdge system if it needed to, and it could log into the AWIN system, and it could serve both platforms. So in the event as you asked, Ms. Jenkins, he's got personnel that work Bikes, Blues, and Barbecue, and they need to be on the Fayetteville system. They could, at that time, move over, and then when their business is done there, they could move back to the county system. Both proposals talked about an 18-month time window for completion. Kind of 6 on one hand, half a dozen on the other there. We asked for a cost of 705 radios from them as well. Certainly, they take care of our system today, so they knew the total number of radios that we have out there operating, so they just went ahead when they provided their proposal back, and they proposed 1,920 radios, specific division between handhelds and mobiles, and the dispatch equipment that was needed also. With the addition of that number of radios, it included rural fire departments, small town police departments, and central EMS. Both systems is something that you're probably going to be interested in. Both systems will now have to lease the tower sites that we're going to use in the future. Josh and I have had a lot of conversations about this. It's a costly venture, but it is unfortunately something that's necessary. We're looking at, on the Motorola side with the AWIN system, our expected costs for leasing tower sites to put our equipment on is going to run about $117,000 a year. And to look at the NextEd system with P25 option proposed by the Kenwood and Smith Company is going to be somewhere around $170,000 a year.
What was that first number again?
117, and again, these are,
Okay, I don't have, yeah, I'm sure I've got my page out here, I'm sorry. Yeah.
that's all right.
Go ahead.
And then the second number was 170.
Must be it.
Let's see.
That's all right, go ahead.
And they also proposed that they would provide a 95% coverage for handhelds. So very, very similar there. Certainly, both are much better than, I think, what we have today.
Yeah, got a question here. Ms. Ann, go ahead.
Well, I may be jumping the gun, and you're probably going to get to it, but what about Strickler?
What about Strickler? The fact that the chief is here, or?
No.
We still
I
have
want to
a-
know if we're going to have coverage down there, because there's no coverage now.
Yes, ma'am. Both companies have said that they will provide coverage to us in 95% of the county. What's
Does that
interest-
include
between
Strickler?
Between 93 to 95.
Yeah, but here's the issue with that. When you look at 990 square miles and you figure a 95% figure, I think you came up with how many miles was
You're looking
uncovered?
You're looking about 50 square miles uncovered. Now, that's going to be one area, no, most of it's down in the south part of the county. Depends on the terrain. We know Strickler's down by Devil's Den. We know that coverage down there is hard to cover. And, I mean, I've got the maps. I mean, more than welcome to look at the maps, and that's something we can go over later. But some of it's covered and some of it's not, so.
And I
but
think
it's with both systems.
the best thing, in fact, I point out Chief Coker's here. Chief, you've obviously been a part of this committee. You've seen the various map proposals and stuff. Do you feel like that you're comfortable with either one on the coverage that Strickler would have in the future?
Yes, I think we've struggled with coverage before we've had this conversation, so, yes, we're good.
Does that answer your question, ma'am?
Yeah, it answers my question. Maybe and maybe not.
And you know, that's the unfortunate piece, you know, I just said a moment ago, you know, we've got hundreds of millions of dollars in cellular infrastructure in our county, and there are places that you can't get a phone call. And so, it's the nature of radio. I don't necessarily like that. It's not that we're comfortable with it, we just know that's the reality of it. And as Mr. Bowman asked, you know, can we have 100% coverage? Well,
Yeah.
we certainly can if y'all will grant that.
Yeah.
I just don't know what the cost for that would be, and
All right.
is it actually attainable?
Okay, Ms. Madison, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm trying to compare the two here in my mind. And
Okay.
see where they're similar and where they're different. Are we going to have to build any new towers?
There will be a new tower constructed either way around the Evansville area. I think that's just a good
think
general.
we've heard
yeah.
that before,
Yes, ma'am.
yeah.
There'll be a new tower built there, and either one, whichever way we go, we will put infrastructure there that's radio related, and then the company will build the actual infrastructure that it goes on.
Okay. Now, I know that Motorola is part of the AWIN system. Does Smith and Kenwood communicate through AWIN, Or is that why there's an extra handheld?
There's not an extra handheld, it's just within the same handheld, there's two operating platforms. It can use
Okay.
either one, yes.
So you have a handheld that you switch back and forth from
You can.
AWIN to,
You can if you need to, yes.
okay, is that in any way cumbersome or?
Well, it depends on, I guess, and maybe Josh want to jump in here, it would depend on your 99% of your traffic, if you will, daily would be, as they've proposed it, on the NextEdge system. But if you need to have interoperability with someone on the AWIN system, we'll use the Sheriff's Office and Benton County Sheriff's Office. Benton County Sheriff's Office, as they come online, will be on the AWIN system. And so they would not be able to communicate with the sheriff's deputy on NextEdge. But if they needed that communication to happen, the sheriff's deputy would have the ability in his radio or her radio to change over and have that communication. It just wouldn't be something that they would do all day, every day.
But would it involve an extra step or?
I think either way, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, if I want to talk to Benton County with either system, the Motorola or the NextEdge system, we'd have to turn the knob one way or another to talk to them because they won't be on our everyday channel.
Right. Extra step one.
So
way.
there's an extra step no matter what. Like today, if I want to talk to Fayetteville, I got to go to a channel called LE Patch. And it's something that we put together 2 years ago, probably 2-3 years ago.
Because of your current equipment?
It wouldn't matter what the equipment is. If I want to talk to another department besides the sheriff's department, I'd have to turn to a different bank to talk to that department.
Okay. Benton County Sheriff is on AWIN, right?
Yes,
Spring-
they're going to the.
Springdale
B25.
is AWIN, Fayetteville is
Yes.
AWIN.
Yes.
Yes.
Who all is on NextEdge?
University
And
of Arkansas.
I think I knew that.
Here, the only one is going to be the University of Arkansas.
Yeah.
And I asked for and that was one of my concerns too, because, and I asked for a comparison of, as far as departments that are close around here, and I think the closest one that would be to a system of our size was going to be North Carolina
I believe that's right, yes.
with an 8 tower, and I think they had 6 towers, not 8 towers. So, but either system, platform, there is a step to talk to a different department.
Well, I've just been in shock since I've discovered several years ago that we weren't part of AWIN. When that became available after 9/11, I just assumed everybody in the state jumped on that opportunity and went with AWIN. And I was a little shocked to find out we
let me-
didn't, but
We did, and we have been, since that initial onset of the Homeland Security grants. We acquired just over 200 radios, and we placed those in the hands of what we called our leadership within the county on the command and control system for AWIN. And so there have been, and continue to be today, probably at this point, closer to 300 units on the AWIN system as they need to be. They just don't use it every day as their operating system 24/7, 365.
okay, let me ask you this about the small town central EMS and rural fire departments. How are they fitting into either scheme?
Okay, I'd be glad to tell you that. On the FDMA $6.2 million proposal, there are 705 radios. That's the radios that will probably be simply the coroner's office, the sheriff's office, and our office. Small town law enforcement, rural fire, and central EMS are not included in that figure. I will say Motorola has offered that pricing to those agencies, if in fact, as long as they need, I guess, or whatever that time frame would be, you guys would be comfortable with, that they could actually purchase those radios at the same cost as the county. Is that correct?
What we said is 1 to 2 years from the time it's built out and
Perfect.
accepted.
Yeah.
Here's when the rebudget is like-
So once the key comes on, if you will, they would have 2 years, and they would honor that same pricing per radio for those departments you just talked about. On the Kenwood proposal, those radios for those folks are included.
And as far
Did
as,
we get a total price on the Kenwood? I see
It's
the 6 point.
5.4 million. And there's there's 5.41, I'm not gonna chase the smaller numbers, about 5.4 million.
Okay. Well, given that one proposal takes care of well, I guess they both take care of the small towns and rural fire in a way, but are the rural fire departments, if they end up having to buy equipment through Motorola, are they going to be able to do that?
Well, I think, and maybe J.P. Leming would be more appropriate to speak on that as the chief of a department, but I think it certainly will be a financial burden on them.
how big of a financial burden will it be?
It'll depend on the number of radios that they have to purchase and the pricing.
Well,
that they
Prairie
can get.
Grove, we talked to JC, and he's probably about 150,000 to buy. Lincoln, my area, is probably about the same number. And Farmington and the police department and all that, I mean, it all depends on the amount of radios they need.
Do we know how the other counties have dealt with that issue with their rural folks?
Right now, the way it looks, if you go with Motorola and they get to 705 radios, the small towns, central, and the fire departments will have to come up with about $2 million between everybody, about 1,200 radios.
Is that what happened in Benton County? And, Mr. Chairman, if it's okay that we talk back and forth, it's not.
I want to say that Benton County actually granted their departments, they said, okay, we'll provide one radio at X price, and we'll pay for that. But if you don't want that radio, you got to pay the difference for whatever radio you want.
One radio type, not one individual radio.
Right. So they
Okay, so
allotted-
Benton County, in their package, they included one per.
Can you help with that?
That is correct, yes.
Okay for us to
Yes.
say exactly.
Yeah, they allotted so much for their radios, for their fire departments, and said, you can buy this radio. If you want a different radio, that's fine, but we're only gonna allot you $1,000 per radio.
But our deal with Motorola doesn't do that.
Not at this point, no, ma'am. It certainly could be modified to do that. Depends on the amount of funding that the court wishes to put forward.
Okay.
The radios they're proposing to you, the sheriff's office are not going to use that cheap version of radio, so they'll be credited the $900, but the radio they're probably going to use is probably going to cost another $2,500. So that's going to be added to the cost of the radios too. I know that don't
I
make
think
a lot
what
of
JP
sense, but
Leming
it's,
is
I might have to get you to say that
It kind
again.
of goes into, so on the radio, what the quote is an APX 900 radio, which is a lower tier of Motorola. And they really don't, what's the proper word? They don't sell that radio as a public safety recommendation radio. So when they turn around and they sold Benton County their radios, Benton County did buy some APX 900s, but they were facilitating them radios inside the detention facility. So then they turned around and they bought some APX 4000s and some other radios for their people out on the road and street that's a little bit more wear and tear on the radios that could happen. So that's what the recommendation was on that side, and that's something that I think we would go towards as far as the sheriff's department goes, as far as the patrol side or the enforcement side. And same thing with central or emergency management or anything like that.
Well, I assume Benton County has sort of the same issues with rural, smaller towns and rural fire departments that we would have.
Yes.
And that's how they solved it.
And I mean, one of the things that I want to make sure as far as us bringing this up here, and I didn't know a lot about radios. I mean, my background came into, I got tossed into a reprogramming of our system 3 years ago, probably, and realized that there was a lot of work to this. Came back from the National Academy, advised that I was on this committee, had learned a ton of stuff. I know I've spoke to Motorola, spoke to Kenwood, some people that deal with the Harrison side, and I've learned a tremendous amount, but I've learned enough to be dangerous. And
We don't want dangerous.
And something that I've told the committee is my big recommendation, and something that I'll push for the sheriff's department, and hopefully I don't speak out of turn, considering my boss is back there, is my big recommendation would be hire a consultant and spend just a little bit more money to sit there and say, this is the way to go. We as a committee have decided that there's two options.
Okay.
But I'm not comfortable in saying this is the option to go or this is the option to go. I think getting a consultant in and really ironing out everything, because since we've been doing this, I've gotten one proposal from Kenwood on the next ed system, and I have had 5 different proposals from Motorola, and the price goes down a little bit each time, and I don't know exactly what they take off, if that's something we really need. I mean, I've got 2 books this size that I went through and taken notes, and all the committee, I mean, there's probably 7 to 10 of us on the committee, all of us have done that. And I wouldn't feel safe, and I'm not gonna sit here and say go one way or another, but I think the next step would be get a consultant to turn around and give us the proper direction for a county.
Well, how easy is it to go find a consultant in this area?
We've asked Motorola
We've
to provide
asked
us
both,
some,
yes.
and we've asked Kenwood to provide us some, because
Okay.
my concern is I don't want a Motorola consultant, and I don't want a Kenwood consultant. I want someone
Oh,
neutral.
I thought there
to-
might be a neutral person. I think it's time for me to lose the mic. Thank you, Mr.
And that's
Ms.
what I
Ann
would
Harbison?
recommend.
Well, I'm really more confused than I was when we started.
Join the crowd.
If we look at the cheap, and if I look at covering the rural fire departments and the small departments and EMS, then, I look at Kenwood, because they provide the best service to those constituents that I'm the most concerned about. But sometimes, just because it doesn't cost quite as much, doesn't mean that it is as good, but it could be as good.
Well, I think that,
Oh.
to Josh's point, is the consultant, if we can get a consultant, and I know they've proposed 3 names to us, I'm certain we can get additional names.
So are we talking 100,000, 200,000?
20.
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna be near that expensive. I know Springdale, Fayetteville, the state, Garland County, Rogers, everybody has utilized a consultant, one or the other. I think that it would be wise to do that.
And everybody that I've talked to that's used a consultant has reaped the benefits on the back end. I mean, as far as the contract and all that stuff goes, they've saved money on the back end of using that consultant side. I mean, with.
Because
when I
they
talk to
know
Bob.
all the loopholes to ask for. And if you don't ask for them, they don't always volunteer them.
Well, and I'll be honest with you, I'm not an electronics engineer, but there's a ton of engineering in a system that's $5, $6, $8, $10 million. I mean, whatever the cost, like it or not, I'm not an electrical engineer. I don't understand R256 grounding. We've got to have somebody that, no matter who we utilize, understands that, yes, this is done the way it's supposed to be done. Yes, this will cover the areas that you're talking about. Yes, these radios will meet the requirements of your users.
John, I'm sure glad to hear you say that, because I felt like I've been drinking from a fire hose here. I'm telling you, it's just amazing. Okay, any other comments? You got any comments?
Yes. Was there any strong opinions from your committee one way or another? I mean, were the scales just were you evened out, or, I mean?
I think in fairness, there are pros and cons to both systems.
Sure.
And in those, you've got finance, you've got local service, you've got equipment, you've got broad coverage, more narrow coverage. There's a whole
Slew.
Yes, and so, it is not going to be an easy decision when it ultimately has to be made. And I think, and help me committee members, I think the right thing is for us to find someone that we can look to and say, here's what we've got, steer us in the right direction.
Mr. Leming, go ahead.
With all that said, in fairness, all the rural towns and fire departments and everybody, 90% of us work off of Kenwood radios, and we all really enjoy them. We really love them. There's a bunch of towns that's already bought new ones, and they have no problem with them. Us small towns and all of us country people can't talk about Motorola because we've never had it, and it's not out there. John can say, and I can say, because I've got one of City of Fayetteville's Motorola radios, it don't work where I live. Kenwood has a hard time working where I live. I live in no man's land. But we got to fix that problem because we got a lot of people live there, so we got to work on that problem. So everybody now knows Kenwood, and it works. And Smith's been real good to us, and it's worked good for us for the years. And he's a real good person to deal with, and he's done the county well for years. It's just sad that the system that we have was bought out by Motorola, so therefore you cannot buy parts for it no more. They took it off the air to come to what they got today to get us to go to AWIN and stuff. So there's a lot more to this story than y'all just hearing bits and pieces of it tonight. We've got lots of hours involved in it, and it gets more complicated as you talk about it. But we all know Kenwood is a good product. We all know we've had good service with it, and I'm just gonna reach out and say that there's a lot of us guys wants Kenwood, because we really like Kenwood. But that's not to say that's what we're gonna do, but there's a lot of us would probably vote that way tonight. But that's, we just gotta hash it out. The consultant's gonna be a lot of good information for us, and we probably need to go that way. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Leming. I think about this thing, and I've been pushing on this crowd to get us a report for quite a long time. And now I think I better understand why it's taken as long as it has. It's a very tedious issue. What's the pleasure of this committee? Do we need to go ahead and make a motion that we pass this on and ask for a consultant in this situation?
I'm going to make a motion that we go with the consultant, that we support whatever we need to do, support John in choosing a consultant since he's in charge of the emergency.
Okay, could we amend that a little bit with a request for applicants or a request for proposals? Because we're talking about,
An
it could be talking about a lot of money.
RFQ, is that what you
John, will
want?
county judge have to hire them anyway?
Counselor?
Say again?
It's all, that all have to be up to the county judge.
Oh, okay.
We
All
can
right.
certainly provide names to the county judge, and
Okay,
they can look through that.
so the judge will make a decision about that then.
He can't do it without an appropriation of money or a commitment to appropriate. So if it's what the quorum court wanted to do, they could vote on, we want the judge to move forward with a consultant. And then the reason I say that is the judge is one that has to enter into the contract. The judge can't appropriate the money, can't say,
Yep,
we're
I
going
got
to do
you.
it without having approval.
Okay. We have a motion and a second then. I'm sorry.
All right, I want to amend my motion. I don't want to amend the motion that we send it an RFQ to the county judge with a $25,000 appropriation.
Do you guys have any idea if that'd be adequate?
Some of the figures I heard from Springdale on the front end of their project were around that price range. I cannot confirm that as I sit here now, but I certainly could reach out to them first thing tomorrow and find out kind of what the thoughts are that
Okay.
they give me back on the
We have
cost.
finance tomorrow night, so we could,
Okay, all right. Yes, ma'am.
I'd just like to suggest that you maybe put a time limit in this. We don't need it dragging on for
You're right,
another
you're
6
right.
months.
Yep,
How
you're
about
right.
by November 1st, or think of a deadline?
I like that idea. Yes, ma'am.
And may I also suggest that we make sure that it is an independent consultant, not related to, affiliated with either Motorola or Kenwood.
I will say this, we felt like we'd asked each of the representatives with proposals to send us 3 names, and they did. And Josh and I said, if we have one that's common between both of them, well, maybe that's one to look to. Otherwise, we'll throw them all out and go with somebody in the RF world that's out there that does this. And there are companies out there, and I'm not afraid to take recommendations from either one of them. If they're reputable companies, I think they'll be able to help us out.
Okay, you have a question? Yes, ma'am.
Is it fair to ask, why wasn't a consultant hired initially?
I think it's fair to say we didn't truly understand the magnitude of the project and the politics that would be involved and the opinions that would be involved and then the operational needs that would be involved. That's a lot to promise, is that we will provide you this and it will work, and here is the price from whoever proposes it to you. I just don't want to, I think Josh and the other committees don't want to be on the hook for, here are proposals. You don't know that it's truly going to work until you turn it on, and then what if it doesn't? What if it doesn't? The court has to and the county has to deal with it doesn't, and then the users in the field don't have the service that they need at that moment in time. And the unfortunate piece of this is, it's life safety. And so, we want to make certain that for the next 15 to 20 years, when this system's on the air, that his firemen and his patrolmen and others, our medics in the field, the system performs as best it can for them.
Yeah.
So, I don't
Okay.
know if that's what you wanted, but
So
the
this
best
will-
thing to do.
yep.
Basically,
I think
we don't
that
know.
Butch wanted, oh, go ahead. Butch?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just wondering if our chief of staff had any input to the discussion. He's been sitting and listening, and I see his head moving up and down, so. Do we have any input from the chief of staff?
Carl Gales, Chief of Staff. When this issue came up in approximately, I don't know how many months ago, and was included with the jail, at that time, we looked at a lot of different avenues of what the radio consisted of, and Brian did a lot of legwork. So came up with a solution that we form a committee and do the findings. It's been a little lengthy. We see a lot of the parameters here that they touched on, but we're still yet to the point that the radio is an issue. It's a countywide issue. We need to move it forward. The committee has reached the point where they feel like that this is their recommendation, and we totally support that, the judge and I do. And so at your pleasure, we'll move it forward and get a consultant and get this thing into reality in the next coming year.
Good deal. Thank you, Carl. Okay, Mr. Johnson, I believe you had a comment?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to make sure I've heard it right. Fayetteville's picked Motorola, Springdale's picked Motorola, Rogers has picked Motorola, Bentonville's picked Motorola, and Benton County's picked Motorola. My question, how many of them hired a consultant? Did all of them?
As far as I know.
As far as I know, all of them have.
Okay, so how much money are we going to spend on this?
Other comments? Go to Mr. Leming.
I just want to say one more thing about the Next Edge radio. The road department of Washington County is on that, and they're going to keep it. They're going to continue to use it if you go to Motorola. Is that correct, Carl?
That depends on our... The road department is unique from their major operations are inter-department. The radios that we have in our units out in the field are all inter-department use. We do very little outside of our department. Now, we do have 6 basic radios that we will have on the AWIN system if that's chosen, which is our key personnel and our supervisors but we feel like the expenditure for our road department, our grader operators, and our lower echelon, not to have an expenditure at this time.
The Farmington schools what radio system do they have in their school?
It's the Kenwood system.
Okay, so the Next Edge system that we go to, we'll be able to talk to, because I know Lincoln's got, all of our schools is on the Next Edge system now too, and the University of Arkansas. So, I mean, we'll be able to communicate with everybody. And we can with Motorola too. I'm not saying Motorola can't. It's just, if we're going to try to stay together and stay hooked up, there's no constitutional law that I've heard or seen says that we have to have P25. We have to have Motorola, we have to have Kenwood, we just have to have radios at work. I've not seen anything that says, have you, John, that actually says we have to have?
No, sir.
So.
Okay, we had a motion about hiring a consultant.
It was with an appropriation.
Turn that thing off.
Well, it's fine.
And we have a second on that motion? I believe we did. All right. Any discussion? Public
Mr. Chairman,
comments?
as an
Yes,
observer,
sir. Go ahead.
I have yet to hear the concise motion.
You what?
Could we have the concise restated motion?
Would you restate the motion?
The motion was to hire, to send a request to Judge Wood to hire a consultant on our radio system, and we set a price of $25,000.
Okay.
And the deadline of November 1st for us to hear from the consultant.
All right.
That may not be possible. I would urge you not to
Okay.
hire, to get a consultant, sure, because
By
we have to do an
Okay, by
RFP.
November 1st.
Okay.
Okay, all right. Okay, and we have a second on that? Okay, we got a second. All right, any other comments? Are you ready for a vote? Public comments? Okay. All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passed. Thank you, gentlemen.
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's hope the next line doesn't take as long. Mr. Chief of Staff.
Carl Gales, Chief of Staff. We're getting close to 8 o'clock, so I'm going to cut about half of what we thought we were going to have time for. Give a quick look, as a request of Chairman Harvey Bowman, about some of the things that's happened in the county and what's going on in the county pretty quick. As you know, I'll start off with the planning department. And the planning department has had a lot of issues with CUPs. We've had a lot of issues with minor subdivisions and a lot of legal questions. We're working real closely with the Northwest Planning Regional Group and looking at our ordinances along with our legal counsel to come forth with some recommendations about how to streamline. We're looking at a lot of ordinances that counteract ordinances that didn't get counteracted, so that will be forthcoming as soon as we can get, and we're hopeful that we can make some presentations on that next month. Roads, I had Charles scheduled and to give a quick one, and I'll jump back to him after I get through because we are getting late. The radio committee you just heard from. The animal shelter, they continue their new avenues to send dogs and cats out of the county. So far this year, we're at 703 as of today that they have shipped to other locations, no-kill facilities. We are very selective on that. The JDC department, as you know, we lost our director who retired, Jeannie Mack. We've been interviewing. I will say that we had 7 applications, which was very well qualified. That task became more difficult to us each time we read a resume. We've got some people with high education and 15 to 20 years experience to fulfill her shoes, so we're very proud of the applicants that we're getting.
Good.
We will come forth within the next 2 weeks, finalizing that decision and getting that person on board.
Great.
Environmental, we had a great county cleanup, about 30% increase with Boston Mountain on the landfill on our countywide cleanup, and our fall cleanup is scheduled for October, and that we really are getting a response, and we're really proud of that we increased 30 to 40% last year, and people are participating. We still yet have 3 to 5 illegal dumps that we know of, and there's probably much more that we don't catch, but our crew has been out. The 2-man, they're on the road every day, and they're wearing out tires and on our roads. The library, we just talked on our library about a personnel, but they gave me an outstanding figure that really amazed me. From June the 1st to August the 31st, they had 329,315 items checked out of the library. They run over 1 million items a year out of our library system. That's our countywide library with our branch libraries. That's amazing to me. Buildings and grounds.
He's back there.
Go ahead and leave. I'm going to let Dwight come in after Charles. Grants. We've got 20 grants that were written this year. We've received 11 approvals. We're over the 2 million mark. And we've got 8 pending with about 1.287 million out there. Comptroller, you know, we're in the budget period and we see the comptroller coming once a month with the budget report. But here's something interesting that the comptroller done. This year they've processed over 20,000 paychecks. They've processed over 18,000 invoices, P-cards and payment cards. They've made a major upgrade processing with our SunGuard and our payroll and our financing, which will enable us to accurately track a lot of things that we haven't been tracked and solve a lot of audit problems that presently have been hitting us yearly. We've seen the Human Resources just give us an insurance report. They, new hires and orientations and the turnovers, and they're working with the same group that they've been working with for the last 3 years for personnel and not asking for any more people. IT received an award for the Outstanding Department number 9 in the United States as an IT department. These guys are first class. They're world class. So I think we're very fortunate with that. You see what happens when we mention something that we want?
Yep.
And when we mention something that JP Lance had on a problem and they solved it, they're trying to get it solved and working with him closely. So I'm very proud of them. Of course, the big thing is I wear this all the time, and it's really difficult to sleep with it. Purchasing, the purchasing department is really stepped up on our contracts and getting our bid packages out. And then, as we know, in our archives department, we've gone digital. We virtually are really getting everything online to where that you can immediately access all the old records. And when we get through and working with Kyle and his organization up there, it's going to be really updated to where, and we're so far ahead the other counties already in getting records and files that it's unbelievable.
Okay.
So that's a
Carl?
quick rundown on all of our counties.
We got a question, Sepa.
So I have 3 items. I'll be very quick. The first is we used to get those reports from the animal shelter that showed numbers in, numbers out, adoptions, euthanasia. Is that information that we could still get?
Sure.
Okay, because I really would like to see that.
Okay.
So that's just a comment. I had 2 questions from constituents. The first was about the road that's being constructed by the jail.
Yes.
And the purpose and the cost. And then the next question, and I'll just give the microphone back, was a question about the RFP that's gone out for something called Patriot Park and how much it costs and what the purpose is. And I'll turn it back over so I don't eat up more time.
Okay. On the access road at the, down at the South Complex, the access road was initiated as a safety measure from the standpoint, and we're building that road. It is our road. It's going to be on it's a private easement road for us to have our emergency vehicles to get in and out. We were blocked with one road in and only one road. We had numerous cases where we were waiting up to 30 minutes to get past due to Tyson's and McBride being blocking the road above. With the work with the sheriff and looking at our emergency vehicles, we felt it's a necessary expense to provide safety for about 1,000 people that would be entrapped down there in case of an emergency.
What was the cost of the road?
I haven't got the final cost yet.
Okay. Can I ask the constituent asked this because they'd heard it was about road. Was there any attempt to talk to Tyson and McBride and say, hey, this is a public road and you're blocking emergency vehicles before we constructed a road?
We got the easement from McBride. They acknowledged it. The traffic back up there with the trailer trucks that are coming in and their transport trucks, and Tyson's uses it exclusively. They're the major trafficker on that road every day, and that was the influence there. It's a city street up to our property line, then it's a private road, therefore.
The existing road is the city street.
Is a city street up to our property.
Okay.
So we have no jurisdiction over it.
Okay, and then the next was about the Patriot Park.
The Patriot Park is a future development that works with a grant program at our state level, and we put out a RFP for them to give us a proposal to come back securing the grant and the cost, and we do not have that back. We just got it out. We haven't selected the final group to do it.
What is it? I don't know what it is.
It's a veteran housing project. Our RFP consisted of 60 to 80 veteran preference apartments.
Do you have a cost of that?
That's part of their proposal. That's part of what we ask them. Send us a proposal of developing the property that we own up at UAMS, and when we get that proposal back, it'll be a public record. Right now, we haven't got the final selection of the group. So that's where we are in it. It just went out and the bids were received, or the packages were received last week.
Is that going to be a federally funded program? The building?
There's a grant program available that is quite significant, but, and that, the onus is on them to come back and give us a full proposal, the full funding, self-funding, and we don't want to say without any cost to us, because we have our land and et cetera. So there's no 100% free rides, as we know, on any project. We always have to make some submissions, but that will be coming forward as public record and to the quorum court for consideration.
Okay, thank you. Did you have a comment?
I just wanted to help Carl. The one big safety deal at the Tyson plant, there's a freezer down there, and they've got big ammonia tanks down there. And if for some reason they had a big mad ammonia leak, that road would be blocked. You couldn't even get to the county facility.
That's right.
And that's a big issue, because they've had that problem up here at Springdale, and they've had to, 4 or 5 blocks had to be shut plumb off before they got that ammonia straightened up. And it's very possibly that could happen there too. So I think it's a good safety issue.
And another aspect of it will be that the sheriff's department will have 2 accesses, one on the north side and one on the south side to get on our road going out. And that's a big factor for us, as well as for the JDC and for the others. That gives us 2 outlets to get in and out at all times. Okay?
All right.
Now I'll ask Charles and Dwight to come forward and give you a quick one.
All right.
We're
Okay,
5
thank you.
minutes after 8.
Thank you. Do a 5-minute presentation, huh? Charlie can't even say hello in 5 minutes.
Okay, I'll try to keep it short and sweet. The road department's finally starting to level out as far as employees go. We're almost full staff again, other than the 3 positions that we were trying to make into labor positions. And I'm hoping that that'll be received well, and maybe we can get some guys in that want to fill those. We have a constant need for flaggers and things like that, shovel guy in the ditch. So I think it was appropriate, and I appreciate you guys considering that. With the restructuring and moving people around, I feel like things are flowing a lot better. The production is up astronomically. I know the complaints come. It doesn't matter how much you work or how much you complete. The complaints always come because you're not working where they want you to. That just comes with the territory, and we've accepted that to the best we can. We completed the Brush Creek Bridge ahead of schedule. Right now, we've we've got 4.5 miles of dirt road paved so far. We're anticipating finishing Trace Branch would add another 4 miles to that, get us to 8.5 miles of dirt road to pavement this year. Also, we've got the unpaved roads grant out at Ballard Creek. We're hoping to be completed with that in the next maybe 3 weeks, be totally complete. We've almost got the road structure completed, but we like putting the drainage structures in. That's been a great program. They come in, we've got the grant 3 years in a row, and that's been a tremendous help. Right now, we're kind of transitioning our major projects. Are trying to get Trace Branch completed and the access road into the sheriff's department completed. And then the rest of the year, we're going to try to concentrate on patching and putting in culverts, drainage structures, general maintenance.
Okay, Charles, I really appreciate the comments you gave me earlier about the troops are buying in. They're taking ownership of what's going on out there.
Yeah,
And
I
I
believe
think that's
they are.
really encouraging to hear. And we've had more compliments on the road program this year than I've ever heard since I've been on the court. So does somebody else have something?
I appreciate that.
Turn on your mic.
And I apologize, that's kind of a sore thumb that forget you. But we've got it open for traffic right now. We're in dilemma back and forth with who's actually responsible for the damages. Ultimately, the water is responsible for the damages, but the between Garver and the contractor, nobody's really wanting to take ownership of that right now. But we have got it opened, and we've got a plan to put it back to where it'll stay. But we're trying to work out if we're going to be able to get any help financially. We've presented it to FEMA. We're waiting on word back from them. Still don't have a confident word back from FEMA yet if they're going to help us.
Thank you, Charlie. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Now, Miss Ann, in his defense, the last 2 Saturdays I've drove across Dye Creek Bridge, and people are out there swimming and fishing and everything else. But,
Mike.
I'll let him take care of that. You all should have a report in front of you on the progress of the performance contract from Johnson Controls. As far as other things in our department, between janitorial, fixed assets inventory, and then of course maintenance, things are going fantastically well. Getting ready for an equipment auction coming up. Janitorial's doing well with the staff that they have, even with increased square footage. CSU is doing very well. And so on the performance contract, we have 7 facility improvement measures. I've listed all 7 there. I'm just going to very quickly go over the ones that have started. What I'm excited about are a few things. IPS is a company in Springdale. They're the ones contracted to do all the lighting. They were actually going to do a lot more here. They were worried about the court. I said, work downstairs and be quiet and do everything else and just get to work. If you notice, there's 25 to 30% already completed on the project. They're still waiting on some bulbs and fixtures to come in. What that means is the moment they plug in a new LED, the meter automatically spins slower. So now we are at 0.25% of the way. I just spoke with him. We're still good, 25, 30%. He says, maybe a little bit more. I said, well, I'll just stick with 25 and 30%. We'll be good, which means we're already turning the meter slower, even without any of the solar, the photovoltaic work that's done. You look on water conservation, a company named RTS, which has people around in this area that their contract is beginning to stage equipment, low-flow toilets, low-flow faucets, urinals, those kind of things. That equipment is coming in. They'll be starting to work in just a few weeks. Another important thing about that, lower water usage equals lower bills. It's the greatest thing about that. The HVAC upgrades, which are some of the things that we're very excited about, they've already begun. They've begun installations at the road department and the veterans building. The veterans unit was about 30 years old. So, not only do we get a new piece of equipment, we also get a higher energy efficient, it's called a SEER rating, a more efficient unit there. And of course, the building surveys in this building alone, the water source heat pumps, we're moving into that. They're looking at the CSU, which has 3 units that are all over 20 years old, that are going to be replaced soon, so that's going well. The emergency energy management control system, allows us to dial in the thermostats. No one will have control over thermostats anymore. That means we're not cooling a space or heating a space that's unoccupied. So we will be able to raise the thermostat up or lower it depending on the time of the year, and so we're not paying for any unnecessarily cooling. The solar voltaic, which is the solar field, one of the things that I'm kind of excited about, the engineering is being completed. The contract calls for 5,418 370-watt solar panels. That makes us the largest taxpayer-owned solar producer in the state. And all of that energy that we'll be producing goes toward our consumption. Now, we consume a whole lot more than that every year with the jail, of course, but we are going to completely consume every piece that we're using. They project that we'll probably be giving a lot of that energy, about $20,000 a year worth of electricity to the jail. Now, because of the time and because Seal Lightwave and Johnson, they're looking into others, I approved and looked over what's called Astro Twins 405 volt. So with the same square footage, same size panel, you get 35 more watts of power per. Now, you got to understand that's under absolute ideal conditions and absolute ideal temperatures, but it still has an increased solar production, which ultimately, if you look on there, is about another 189 kilowatts. 189 kilowatts is almost a third the size of the current largest production facility, which is at ASU Newport right now. So just by going from a 370 watt panel to a 405 watt panel makes a huge difference, which means ultimately that even though the sheriff and the jail is not on this contract, it doesn't matter. The county itself, we can take all of that extra money and pour it right into the jail and lower their spending on utilities as well. So I think it's a great thing. The fire alarm system, you can see there, they're updating the drawings on all the fire plans and all the engineering. They hope for that to be submitted by the end of September. Wonderful notifier systems, which allows us to stay interconnected in our fire systems, so that Fayetteville PD along with John Luther can all be connected as soon as there's something. It also allows us to do amazing things with this notifier system as far as active shooter and tornado weather systems, any other kind of alert system that we can send out through SMS and have a wonderful thing.
Okay.
But any questions?
Questions, anybody? Go ahead.
In your budget, the capital layouts, the 470,000, is that the numbers that's going to be for the payment for Johnson Controls?
And April 1st, yes, sir.
April.
But
that is the numbers that we're going to be looking at in the budget. 193.
Correct. April 1st, 470,000. Yeah.
And is that going to be in your budget, or is that going to be in?
As far as right now, that entire number is listed in my budget. At my proposed budget for 2020, there's a lease purchase payment that's under a 5,000s line item. It's something I haven't dealt with, but that getting with the comptroller, it's there. The total county saves the money. There's other departments that share some of the savings and everything, but we have to pick a budget to pay that lease purchase agreement back with.
Do you see any savings the first year at all when we pay that payment, you're going to see any savings you're thinking or not thinking?
I'm seeing savings now. On that 25 to 30%, It's, as soon as they plug in that light bulb, I begin to
So
see
the way we'll
savings.
see that savings is we'll see it through electric bills and water bills.
Correct. We'll see it through electric bill and water bills. One of the things I'm excited about is, this is supposed to be a 10-month construction period.
Right.
They're moving ahead so fast right now. I know them, they're going to tell you we'll be done in 10 months. The lighting, whoever IPS is of Springdale, I am extremely impressed with them.
Would it be too much to ask to have, I'd say, a year's worth of water bills and gas bills and electric bills when it's time to pay all this so we can compare?
Oh, absolutely. We keep track of that. We gave Johnson Controls 5 years of energy usage, and they poured over that 5 years of energy usage. We keep that monthly. So that's a very easy thing to track, and that's what I like. It's very easy for us to track and to hold them accountable to that guarantee.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
My question is actually for roads, if he wouldn't mind coming back up. Thank you very much. I appreciate your
Any others
report,
for me?
Mr. Gonzalez.
You're all done, thank you.
I got a message from a constituent, so I didn't want to pass the opportunity with having you here to ask you the question. It was about the right-of-ways out in the county. Does the roads department maintain right-of-ways as far as mowing and keeping them low?
Yes, and that's something that I should have brought up earlier. We're having a tremendous issues. I was trying to keep it positive, but our mowing machines have given us a lot of trouble this year, mostly emission systems on these things. They're just not standing up, and they're spending more time in the shop than they are on the road, and I'm afraid that's going to be a problem from here on out. And we've considered trying to go to contract mowing, especially on our major roads, try to get some contractors out there mowing to help us stay caught up, especially this year with it raining about every weekend. This grass has not slowed down at all. But yes, that is our responsibility.
This particular constituent lives out near Hogeye Road, and sent some pictures of the right-of-ways and with the real tall grass, and saying that it was kind of an issue as far as site concerns on curbs.
And I will say that our tractors are close to there now. So there's
near
probably
down.
Well, no, I've got them working
near
now,
there.
but they're in that vicinity right now.
Okay.
So
Okay, I'll let
probably
them know
within the next week or so, they should be through there.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I appreciate
Thank you,
it.
Charlie.
Thank you.
Okay. Carl, you have more to say?
Yes. What I have to say is on a very sad note. Miss Janie Parker passed away a couple hours ago.
Who did?
Yes. Janie Parker, our lady at receptionist out at the roads department and planning
really?
department. So our hearts and prayers are with that family tonight.
Was it an accident, or what was it, Carl?
Have no idea.
Okay.
As it stands, what I know now is she was homesick today, called in sick, and when they found her, she was in the bathroom trying to get her heart medicine.
Oh, that's too bad.
So our prayers are there.
Thank you.
Our thoughts are there.
Thanks for sharing that, Carl.
Okay.
Okay, we got a 12-minute period for comments, public comments, 3 minutes each. Any comments? Public comments? I got the timer on you.
Don't start it yet. I'm not up here yet. Okay. Sarah Moore, Fayetteville, and I know it's been a late night, so apologize, but there was a lot covered tonight, and actually, I appreciate that, Mr. Bowman, JP Bowman, I appreciate you getting the updates with the county, because I actually learned a lot. There are several things that we were interested in, and so I actually have some additional questions, and so in the event these folks that are still here, if they can answer those, I'd appreciate it. One of the things I'm very interested in is that I know Sharon Lloyd's heading up our grant department, and I hadn't really heard any stats about our grants, and so the things that were shared tonight about the grants, I'm just curious, with the 20 grants for the year and 11 are approved and some are pending, I'm real curious about how many of those are like ongoing grants versus new grants, and if we have certain areas that we're focusing in, because it sounded like with the Patriot Park, there's potentially, that's a grant program that we're looking into to partner with that, so I'm just kind of trying to understand. And then kind of segueing into Patriot Park, I'm real interested in how we went forward with looking at housing opportunities. I'm really excited about that, actually, and I like that our county is looking to get creative about how we house folks that are home insecure. That's a huge issue within our county, and I know that there's been some discussion in the past that made me think that maybe my county wasn't incredibly supportive of making sure that everyone is home stable. So I like hearing actions maybe behind doing that. So I want to understand kind of what our thinking was and what our strategy was around doing that. And then also, are we reaching out in a bigger way? One of the things that I'm doing as part of a coalition is that we're actually meeting with the Housing Authority, Salvation Army, Seven Hills, Coalition, a Continuum of Care, and we're all having a big conversation about how do we get housing around folks. So I would really like to hear from the county what their thoughts are and like how they went forward on Patriot Park and kind of thoughts around how we're going to address housing going forward in the county. Oh, the other question, sorry, one more thing and I'll be done, is I really, again, appreciate all the additional information that gets brought forward, but there's a lot of extra handouts, and it's really hard as a member either at home or in the audience to follow what's going on. So you're specifically talking to details on pieces of paper. So I don't know if there's a way to project it somehow on these screens or to add an addendum to the agenda that's online, because there's no way as a person in the county to actually go out and actually look at this information. So I would ask there be some kind of process or that to be addressed so that we can have full transparency of what you're looking at and having conversations about we actually in the audience know as well.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, you got it done. How about that? Are there any other public comments? Okay, no other comments. Any motion adjourned?
Motion to adjourn?
Second? Adjourned.